My stepmother kicked me out with nothing, except a strange inheritance, a sealed cave in the middle of dusty land. I thought it was useless, but when I opened it, I discovered a secret that powerful people wanted to keep buried. Before we start, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. The day my stepmother kicked me out of the house was the day my life completely changed. It was a cold morning, the sky was gray, and the wind was blowing dust across the empty road in front of our house. I had just turned 18 a week earlier. And ever since that day, my stepmother had been acting even more distant than usual. She never liked me. After my father died 3 years ago, things in the house slowly became worse. At first she acted kind, but after some time she stopped pretending. That morning she called me into the living room. Her face looked serious. She was holding a thin folder in her hand. "Sit down," she said coldly. I sat on the old couch quietly. For a few seconds she just stared at me like she was deciding something important. Then she sighed. "You're 18 now," she said, "which means you're no longer my responsibility." My stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" I asked. She placed the folder on the table. "It means you need to leave this house." The words hit me like a punch. "Leave?" I repeated. "But this is my home." She laughed softly. "No, this was your father's home," she corrected. "And now it belongs to me." I didn't know what to say. I had nowhere to go. No family, no savings, nothing. She pushed the folder toward me. "But don't worry," she said. "Your father did leave you something." For a moment hope appeared inside me. Maybe he left me some money, maybe a small piece of land, maybe something that could help me survive. I slowly opened the folder. Inside were a few papers and a small map. At the top of the document were the words "property transfer." Below that was a location I had never seen before. "What is this?" I asked. "A sealed cave," she said with a smile that felt almost cruel. I looked up. "A cave?" "Yes," she said. "Your father apparently owned some useless land in the hills. There's a cave there. It's sealed with a metal door. According to the documents, it belongs to you now." I stared at the paper again. A cave. That was my inheritance? My stepmother shook her head. "I have no idea why he left that to you," she said. "But congratulations. You're the proud owner of a hole in a mountain." Then she stood up and walked to the front door. "You can leave today." My chest felt heavy. "You're serious?" I asked. "Very." I grabbed my backpack and slowly walked to the door. Just before I stepped outside, she added one more thing. "Oh, and there's a key attached to the papers. It probably opens the cave door." She laughed. "Maybe there's treasure inside." Then the door closed behind me, and just like that, I was alone. I walked down the road with my backpack and the folder in my hand. The wind carried dust across the empty street. Part of me wanted to throw the papers away. What was I supposed to do with a cave? But something stopped me. My father had always been a careful man. He never made strange decisions. If he left me this cave, there had to be a reason. That thought stayed in my mind the entire night. I slept on a bench near the bus station. The next morning, I made a decision. I would go see the cave. The location on the map was far away, in a dry region with hills and rocky land. It took 2 buses and several hours of walking to reach the area. By the time I arrived, the sun was beginning to set. The land looked empty and quiet. Dusty ground stretched for miles. Small cactus plants grew between rocks, and the wind moved through dry grass. For a moment I wondered if I had made a mistake coming here. Then I saw it. A rocky hill stood in the distance, and at the base of that hill was something strange. A large metal door built directly into the stone. My heart began beating faster. That had to be it. The sealed cave. I walked closer slowly. The door was huge and covered with dust and rust, but it still looked strong. It had thick metal bolts and a heavy lock in the center. Above the door, someone had carved a small symbol into the rock. I recognized it instantly. It was my father's old workshop symbol. My hands trembled slightly. This place meant something to him. I pulled the small key from the envelope. The wind blew across the empty land as I stepped closer to the lock. For a moment I hesitated. What if the cave was empty? What if this was really just a useless piece of land? But I pushed the key into the lock anyway. It turned slowly. Clunk. The lock opened. I placed both hands on the metal door and pushed. At first it didn't move. Then slowly, it creaked open. Cold air rushed out of the dark cave. Dust floated through the light of the setting sun. Inside was complete darkness. I turned on the small flashlight from my backpack and stepped forward. The cave was bigger than I expected, much bigger. The walls stretched high above me. and the space inside felt enormous. But what shocked me the most was what I saw next. This wasn't just a natural cave. Someone had built things inside it. Wooden tables, metal shelves, pipes running along the walls, old machines covered in dust. It looked like an underground workshop. I walked deeper inside, my footsteps echoing in the silence. Then my flashlight landed on something that made me freeze. On the far wall were dozens of drawings, plans, blueprints. And in the center of the wall, written clearly in my father's handwriting, were 6 words that made my heart race. Build what they never believed. I stared at the message for a long time. My father had been working here, planning something. But what? I looked around the massive empty cave again, and suddenly I realized something. This place wasn't useless at all. It was an opportunity, a huge hidden space that no one knew about, a place where something incredible could be built. At that moment, an idea slowly began forming in my mind. An idea so big, it almost scared me. But what I didn't know yet was this. The cave wasn't the only secret my father left behind, and the deeper I explored inside that mountain, the more dangerous the truth would become. The words on the cave wall stayed in my mind the entire night. Build what they never believed. I sat on the dusty floor of the cave, staring at the message written in my father's handwriting. My flashlight rested beside me, casting long shadows across the massive underground space. The cave was silent except for the soft sound of wind outside. At first I didn't know what my father meant, but slowly, as I looked around the huge underground space, something started to make sense. This cave wasn't just a cave. It was a place to create something big, something hidden from the world. The next morning I began exploring the cave more carefully. The deeper parts of the cave were darker and colder. My flashlight revealed old wooden crates stacked against the walls. Most of them were sealed, covered with thick layers of dust. I opened one slowly. Inside were tools, not ordinary tools, engineering tools, metal cutters, measuring instruments, old electrical equipment. My father had been building something here. But why here? Why hide it underground? I continued searching. Further inside the cave, I discovered something even more surprising. A small underground room had been carved into the stone wall. Inside the room was an old wooden desk, and on that desk were several notebooks. My heart began beating faster. I opened the first notebook carefully. Every page was filled with my father's handwriting. Plans, ideas, drawings. But they weren't about machines or buildings. They were about people. Confused, I turned more pages, and then I understood. My father had been designing something much bigger than a workshop. He was planning to build a hidden safe place, a shelter, a place where lost people could live and rebuild their lives. Runaways, orphans, people with nowhere to go, just like me. I sat there quietly for a long time. The cave suddenly felt different. It didn't feel empty anymore. It felt important, like it had a purpose. As I read more of the notebooks, I realized something even more shocking. My father had already started building small systems inside the cave. Water pipes ran along the walls, connecting to a natural underground spring. There were ventilation tunnels carved through the rock to bring fresh air inside. He had even built a small generator system in one corner of the cave. It wasn't finished, but the design was brilliant. My father had planned everything carefully, but there was one problem. He never finished it, which meant if I wanted to continue his plan, I would have to finish it myself. The idea felt impossible. I was just an 18-year-old with no money and no home, but something inside me refused to give up. Maybe my father had believed I could do it. Maybe that's why he left this place to me. Over the next few weeks, I started working. I cleaned the cave. I repaired the generator. I organized the tools. During the day, I worked in a small nearby town doing basic jobs. I helped at a repair shop, fixed broken fences, and carried supplies for local farmers. At night, I returned to the cave and continued building. Slowly, the empty underground space started changing. I built simple sleeping areas. I repaired the water system. I added lights powered by the generator. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. The cave was becoming a hidden shelter. But something strange began happening during those weeks. Late at night, sometimes I heard noises outside the cave. Footsteps, voices in the distance. At first, I thought it was just travelers passing through the hills. But one night, I saw something that made my stomach tighten. A black car was parked far away near the road. 2 men stood beside it, looking toward the hill where the cave was hidden. They stayed there for a long time, watching. Then they drove away. I felt uneasy. The cave was supposed to be secret, so how did they know about this place? The next day I searched through more of my father's notebooks, hoping to find answers. And eventually I did. In one of the last notebooks, there was a short message written clearly. If someone finds this place, it means the people I was hiding from may still be looking. My heart skipped. Hiding from who? I kept reading. My father explained that years ago he had discovered something dangerous. A group of powerful people had been secretly using caves and underground tunnels in remote areas to move illegal goods and hide money. When my father found out about it, he tried to report them, but those people were rich and powerful. Instead of stopping them, the authorities ignored him. So my father decided to create a hidden shelter where vulnerable people could live safely away from those dangerous networks. And he chose this cave because it was located near one of the secret smuggling routes, which meant something terrifying. Those men in the black car might be connected to that network, and if they discovered the cave, they might try to take it or destroy it. For the first time since arriving here, I felt truly afraid. But fear slowly turned into determination. This cave was my father's dream, and now it was mine too. I continued building the shelter. Months passed. Then one day something unexpected happened. While walking through the nearby town, I saw a boy sitting alone behind a small store. He looked around 10 years old. His clothes were dirty and torn. He looked hungry. I bought him some food and sat beside him. "Where are your parents?" I asked gently. He looked down. "I don't have any," he said quietly. That answer hit me hard, because I understood exactly how that felt. After a long moment, I said something that would change everything. "I know a place where you can stay." That night, I brought the boy to the cave. His eyes widened when he saw the huge, underground space filled with lights and simple rooms. "This place is amazing," he whispered. I smiled slightly. "It's just the beginning." Over the next months, more kids like him arrived. Runaways, orphans, kids who had nowhere else to go. The cave slowly became a hidden home, a safe place, just like my father had planned. But the more people arrived, the more attention the cave began to attract. And one night, while checking the entrance door, I saw something that made my heart stop. Fresh tire tracks in the dirt, and this time, they were leading directly toward the cave entrance. The tire tracks in the dirt made my heart start beating faster. They were fresh. Someone had come here recently, and they had driven very close to the cave entrance. For a few seconds, I just stood there, staring at the ground. The wind moved slowly across the dusty land, but the tracks were still clear. Someone knew this place existed. I quickly closed the heavy metal cave door and locked it from the inside. Inside the cave, the children were sitting around a small table eating dinner. There were now 6 of them living here. The first boy I found in town was named Leo. After him came 2 sisters, Mia and Nora, who had run away from a bad home. Then a quiet boy named Daniel arrived, and later 2 more younger kids who had nowhere to go. They had turned the cave into something warm. What once felt like an empty underground space now felt like a home. But those tire tracks meant danger. Leo noticed my face immediately. "Something wrong?" he asked. I forced a small smile. "No, everything is fine." But inside I knew things were changing. That night I barely slept. My father's notebook kept repeating in my mind. The people I was hiding from may still be looking. The next morning I woke up early and quietly walked outside the cave. The tire tracks were still there. But now I noticed something else. Footprints. 2 people had walked around the hill. They had been searching, looking. I followed the footprints carefully. They led toward a nearby ridge, where someone could clearly see the cave entrance from a distance. Someone had been watching. My stomach tightened. If those men came back with more people, they could easily take this place. Or worse. I went back inside and sat at my father's old desk. I needed to think. For hours I studied his notebooks again. Most of the plans were about building the shelter. But near the end I found something I had never noticed before. A page that looked different. It had a strange drawing of the cave layout. But this drawing showed more tunnels. Hidden tunnels. My eyes widened. According to the drawing, the cave had another level deeper underground. And there was something written beside it. Emergency chamber. I stood up immediately and grabbed my flashlight. The drawing showed the entrance to the lower level, hidden behind one of the storage walls. I moved the wooden crates away slowly. Behind them was a metal panel built into the stone wall. It had a small lock. My hands trembled slightly. I used the same key my stepmother had given me. Click. The lock opened. The metal panel slid to the side, revealing a narrow stone staircase leading down into darkness. Cold air flowed up from below. I turned on my flashlight and started walking down. The staircase went deeper than I expected. Finally, it opened into another underground room. But this room looked very different from the cave above. The walls were reinforced with metal supports. There were large machines, computer equipment, and rows of metal cabinets. It looked like a secret control center. I stepped closer to the desk in the middle of the room. On the desk was a single envelope. My name was written on it. For a moment I just stared. My father had written this for me. With shaking hands I opened the envelope. Inside was a letter. My son, if you are reading this, it means you found the deeper chamber. I hoped you would. I built this place not only to protect children who had nowhere else to go, but also to expose the people who were hurting them. For years I collected evidence against a powerful network that used hidden caves and remote land to move illegal money and trafficking victims. I could not trust the authorities at that time. Too many people were involved, so I hid the evidence here. If those people ever come back looking for this cave, it means they are afraid their secrets may be discovered. Inside the cabinets you will find everything: names, transactions, videos, proof. But remember this: do not destroy them with anger. Use the truth. Build something better. Make this place a light in the dark. I slowly lowered the letter. My father had been fighting something much bigger than I ever imagined. And the cave was not just a shelter. It was proof. Proof that could destroy a criminal network. Suddenly everything made sense. Those men outside weren't just curious. They were searching for the evidence my father had hidden. I opened one of the cabinets. Inside were dozens of hard drives, files, and recordings. Years of collected evidence. Enough to expose everything. But there was still a problem. If those people attacked the cave, the children could get hurt. I had to protect them first. For the next few days I worked nonstop. Using my father's plans, I expanded the lower chamber into a safe area where the kids could hide if necessary. I also set up cameras around the hill using the old equipment in the underground room. And then one night, the cameras showed exactly what I feared. The black car returned. But this time there were 3 cars. 6 men stepped out. They walked slowly toward the hill. One of them pointed directly at the cave entrance. My chest tightened. They had found it. Inside the cave, the children looked scared when I told them we needed to hide for a while. Are bad people coming? Mia asked quietly. I nodded. But we're safe, I said. I guided them down the hidden staircase into the underground chamber. The metal door closed quietly behind us. From the control monitors, I could see the men outside. They reached the cave door and tried to open it. When it didn't move, they began using tools. One of them pulled out a metal cutter. They were going to force their way in, but I had already made my decision. Instead of hiding forever, I would end this. I connected the hidden computer system to a satellite signal, using equipment my father had prepared years ago. Then I uploaded every file, every video, every name, directly to multiple law enforcement agencies and news networks. The truth spread across the internet within minutes. The powerful network my father had been tracking was suddenly exposed. While the men outside were still trying to break the cave door, police vehicles began appearing on the road below the hill. Sirens filled the quiet land. The men froze. Then they tried to run, but it was too late. Within minutes they were surrounded. From the monitor I watched as they were arrested. The danger was finally over. When I opened the underground door and walked back into the main cave, the children looked at me with wide eyes. Is it finished? Leo asked. I smiled for the first time in days. Yes. That night we all sat together in the cave, eating dinner and talking. The place felt peaceful again. But something amazing happened over the next months. The story of the cave spread everywhere. People learned about my father's work, about the shelter, about the children who had found safety here, and then help started arriving. Engineers came to help expand the cave into a real underground community center. Teachers volunteered to educate the kids. Doctors offered medical care. The cave grew into something incredible, a safe home for children who had nowhere else to go. But the biggest surprise came 1 year later. One afternoon a letter arrived addressed to me. It was from a legal office. Inside was a document that made me laugh in disbelief. During the investigation, authorities discovered that the criminal network had secretly owned huge areas of land around the hills. After the arrest, that land was confiscated, and because my father's evidence helped expose them, the government had transferred ownership of the surrounding land to our shelter, over 500 acres. The dusty hills around the cave now belong to us. Leo looked at the document and grinned. So we're rich now? He asked. I laughed. Not rich, I said. Responsible. We stood outside the cave together, looking across the wide land. The sunset painted the sky orange and gold. The same dusty land where I once arrived alone now held something powerful. A future. My stepmother once said I had inherited nothing but a sealed cave, but that cave had become something much bigger. A home, a mission, a second chance for hundreds of children. And in the quiet wind moving across the hills, I sometimes felt like my father was still watching, smiling, because the thing he started had finally become everything he believed it could be.